So, you want another One Piece what if? What if Crocodile actually joined forces with DOFLAMINGO back in Marineford? How would this change the whole story? Well, in today's video, we will be figuring that out. We'd start our story off in Marineford, where DOFLAMINGO offers Crocodile to work for him. In this timeline, Crocodile would say how he'll fight him for his leadership, to which DOFLAMINGO would respond by throwing string to slash Croc's body. He thinks he's not going to be touched, but that's when Dofi reveals he has Haki. Dofi, having a Haki-coated leg, would then kick Crocodile to the ground, slumping him, and Crocodile, now having no other choice, would be forced to comply and join Dofi. However, Dofi makes sure that he isn't just a weak underling of his. After all, he is a fellow warlord. He's going to treat him with respect, and Crocodile reluctantly accepts this offer. Keep in mind, Crocodile knows that this is the smartest option to go with right now, and he would tell Dofi to allow him to bring his comrade. Dofi nods and says he can meet up after the war as he goes on to combat fodder pirates. And after this, the rest of the events of Marineford would play out the exact same, but Crocodile would meet up with Mr. 1 after the events of Marineford come to a close, and informs Mr. 1 of their plan, which is to override DOFLAMINGO from the inside when the time is right. For now though, they meet up with DOFLAMINGO where they see Gecko Moria in the rubble. Dofi says that he doesn't really know if he can trust him or not, so to see his loyalty, he wants him to murder a fellow warlord, and Crocodile with no hesitation just turns Moria into a raisin, killing him. Afterwards, the three head to Dressrosa, where DOFLAMINGO would begin to get Crocodile and Mr. 1 to work. For the next 2 years, Crocodile and Mr. 1 climbed through the ranks of Dofi's top men, with Crocodile surpassing the likes of Trouble and Mr. 1 being capable of rivaling and even surpassing Pika. During this time, Crocodile learns all three types of Haki, while Mr. 1 learns Armament and Observation, and Mr. 1 with Armament Haki is able to coat his entire body with Haki similar to Virgo, calling this power Black Steel. I know it sounds kind of corny, but like, you know, the drip is immaculate, what can I say? Crocodile mainly coats his pirate hook with Haki and uses Haki to defend from attacks. And Crocodile over the 2 years has actually learned some new abilities with his devil fruit. Not only does he apply the poison from his hook to now in his sand, so now he can just poison people while also blinding them with sand, but his disintegration move is essentially now applicable with his sand as well, which means he could throw a wave of sand at you which turned you into dust. However, after using such an overwhelming technique, this would overwhelm his stamina, so there is a drawback to this. But Crocodile believes if he could just get one shot at this, he could finally take out DOFLAMINGO once and for all. And Crocodile has seemingly gained DOFLAMINGO's trust, so much so that he can basically hang around with him along with the other top executives. The Straw Hats go through the first few arcs of post-time skip the same as in canon, but everything begins to change once they arrive at Dressrosa. Firstly, when DOFLAMINGO reports to his subordinates about the Straw Hats, Crocodile would ask DOFLAMINGO for him to go after Luffy since he has a score to settle. DOFLAMINGO would allow this, but only for him to also kill Law, because he's more than likely going to be with Luffy. And so we'd have Mr. 1 and Pika going after Luffy and Zoro when they first enter Pika's castle, leading into Zoro combating Pika and Mr. 1. While Zoro first fights Pika though, because Mr. 1 believes he is superior to Pika. While this fight was going down, Luffy was intercepted by Fujitora, who then was intercepted by Sabo. Luffy and Law would reach near the end of the tunnel, where they would instead see a sewer with seemingly no water in it and just dried up sand. Instead of having a DOFLAMINGO clone appear, we have none other than Crocodile. Not only is Crocodile here, but he's working with DOFLAMINGO. As they lock eyes, we see a pressure around them that begins to erupt, indicating they're clashing with Conqueror's Haki. And this would knock out the randos who tried assisting Luffy against the fake Dofi, and even impresses Law. Crocodile would say how he can think what he wants, but he's just playing the long game. And before another word could be said, Luffy goes Gear 2 and tries to throw a Haki-coated kick. However, Croc with ease manages to block it with his black hook, which he would then use to grapple Luffy's foot and then slam him into the ground. Crocodile would say how he's learned his lesson from the last time they fought, and no stupid tricks are going to catch him off guard this time. Luffy would question why Crocodile would even bother with scum like him, since he and Croc both know that he's better than that, and Crocodile would just sort of hesitate from this statement. He'd be surprised to hear Luffy say that, which allows Luffy to hit him with a jet bazooka right in the stomach. Crocodile withstands the blow and would shout at Luffy to not act like he knows him, and Crocodile would throw a massive wave of sand that begins to turn the area into dust. Luffy jumps with Law, sadly leaving the animal that they rode on, who gets crumbled. Crocodile flies up and seemingly stabs Luffy right through the chest, Calling back to their first fight, Luffy's body falls along with Law while Crocodile vanishes into sand. We'd have him report the death of Luffy and Law to Doflamingo, with Dofi laughing, saying that he really did make a wise decision to make him part of this group. However, at the end of the day, Doflamingo knows that he and Croc both want the same thing. Doflamingo would say how he kept him around for this long due to knowing he'd do everything Doflamingo says until the right moment he can strike. However, he and Croc both know that the opportunity is never going to come, and he instead will just erase that risk. With his two biggest threats out of the way, he can now get rid of the next big threat, which would be Crocodile. We then see Crocodile get jumped by the two executives of Dofi before cutting back to Luffy. It's revealed that Luffy actually wasn't injured too badly and only suffered minor wounds in the ribs. Reason for this is because Crocodile last minute uncoated his body with Haki, allowing Luffy to withstand it. Law would question why Crocodile would do that, since if Crocodile wanted to, he could have easily ensured their death by turning them into sand or at least keep his Haki on. After learning about Luffy's first fight with him, which he would talk about, Luffy smiles as he says to himself that he always knew Crocodile wasn't always so bad. They would proceed through Dressrosa with Doflamingo learning of Luffy and Law's survival as we see someone enter the top of the palace, which Dofi thinks is an executive. We see a beaten up Crocodile who, while using his sand, carries the unconscious bodies of both of Dofi's top crewmates. Doflamingo would be enraged at seeing his family defeated like this. Meanwhile, Crocodile would laugh in his face. He'd say how he waited for this day to come. Not only has he gained enough strength to take out anyone in Doflamingo's arsenal, but the day of Doflamingo's defeat is here. Doflamingo laughs, saying that Crocodile couldn't possibly think he's near his level, as the both of them then blitz and clash with one another. This would call back to their fight in Marineford. Doflamingo would shout out how he made Crocodile who he is today, and without him he'd be nothing but an ex-warlord who everyone looked over and forgot. Crocodile would say now he's become a person equal to him, and he will even overthrow Kaido. The two would then back away with them scrapping for a bit, but it's clear that Doflamingo is holding back. However, Crocodile isn't using his best move yet. As things begin to heat up at the top of Doflamingo's palace, we have Zoro finishing off Pika and then engaging in a round 2 with Mr. 1. I think Zoro would have shown off his Haki blade, saying how his steel isn't so special anymore, but Dawes would then say,
"Tiger, are you sure about this?"
while covering his entire body in Haki. Zoro now begins to have deja vu with him not being able to cut Mr. 1. However, he remembers that Mihawk himself had even unparalleled durability with his sword with pure Haki alone. He remembered a similar situation he was in, specifically back when he fought CP9. Even Kaku himself had durability Zoro was used to cutting, but he simply just needed that one moment to gain the advantage. Relying on what he learned from his fight, plus the other ones, we have Zoro then using Ashura. He'd use the 9 blades to put cracks into Mr. 1 and slump him into the ground. However, as Mr. 1's armor begins to crack and Mr. 1 falls, Zoro does as well. Meanwhile, Crocodile versus Doflamingo would still be going on, with Crocodile losing a lot of his steam while Doflamingo is just getting started. Doflamingo would then reveal his overheat technique, which begins to overwhelm Crocodile, and even with Haki, it's really hard to withstand. Doflamingo would laugh and call back to what Crocodile said earlier. Taking down Kaido? If he can't even take down Doflamingo at this point, there's no way he can even think of taking on Kaido. This is when Crocodile would catch Doflamingo off guard and manage to throw his poison sand in his eyes. Doflamingo's eyes would legit be burning, and at that point Crocodile would take advantage and land his hand onto Doflamingo's stomach. That way he can drain him of his hydration. However, that is when it's revealed that during the fight with Croc and Doflamingo, he actually made a string clone, and that string clone was basically the sacrifice. And so Crocodile is now at 0 stamina, and Doflamingo is now getting ready to finish him off. However, Law and Luffy then arrive, and this is when Law uses Shambles with Croc and Luffy to swap their places. That way Luffy can throw a Red Hawk at Doflamingo. And since Croc is basically at 0 stamina at this point and is on the verge of death, Luffy and Law are basically going to be having the same fight that they had like in canon. However, there is no trouble here, so Doflamingo might just get jumped by both Law and Luffy. And depending whether or not Croc is ordered to go and kill Bellamy, the Bellamy stuff may or may not happen, but regardless, I think the fight just goes down the same, with Luffy relying on Gear 4 and him basically being the winning factor. And when Luffy burns out of Gear 4 for the first time, we have Croc and Law being the main people protecting him and stalling against DOFLAMINGO. Now, I do think Law would be weakened, yes, however he wouldn't be nearly as weakened since DOFLAMINGO doesn't have the time to go and manipulate Law. And the Law versus Dofi fight is not nearly as dragged out in this timeline, so we do have Law being able to use some type of moves against Dofi. And with something like Law's powers in combination with Crocodile's unique set of abilities, I think they could definitely at least stall DOFLAMINGO for a good bit of time, or at least better than what the original group did. As Law and Crocodile try to use their last best attempt at defeating DOFLAMINGO, DOFLAMINGO would easily react to them and just slam them both into the ground. However, Luffy would go into Gear 4 again, defeating DOFLAMINGO like in canon. Now, when Luffy escapes Dressrosa being spared by Fujitora, this time Crocodile and Mr. 1 come along as they want to defeat Kaido and they're heading to the same location anyway. However, despite Croc and Mr. 1 being present, Zoe is essentially the same arc, but Jack would report how Crocodile has betrayed them to Kaido, which he really doesn't care too much about because Croc isn't a real threat to him. Now, either Crocodile would go to Wano earlier and go undercover for a while, or go to Whole Cake, which could change up the whole scenario even further. Now, the Whole Cake scenario does sound fun, but I would assume Crocodile and Mr. 1 are way more inclined to go to Wano with Kinemon and the others. With this, that means Whole Cake is basically the same, but along with most of Wano, due to Crocodile and Mr. 1 having no real way to do anything until the war begins. Now, I would assume Crocodile and Mr. 1 would be way stronger here, as the same thing legit happened for Zoro plus a lot of other characters during Wano. But we could actually have a reason for this and say that the three of them simply were just training and have gotten stronger. And Croc definitely has motivation since he wants to surpass DOFLAMINGO and Mr. 1 wants to surpass Zoro. And so we cut to the next big change in our timeline, that being Roof Piece, with Mr. 1 and Croc being present here. Luffy, Law, and Kid would lead the fight like in canon, with all three of them comboing on Kaido. Kaido would shake off their attacks and would proceed to try and swing at all three. But that's when Zoro, Killer, and Mr. 1 move in and land consecutive slashes on Kaido. Kaido, enraged at this, goes into his dragon form and attempts to blast at the group, but luckily Crocodile, telling Law to back him up, would fly up along with throwing a rock with his sand at Kaido's forehead. Law would use Shambles with the rock that Croc brought up, just so that he could get closer to Kaido and throw a puncture attack, stopping Kaido from using the blast, and Crocodile would then move in himself, blasting sand in his eye and making a little scar in his forehead with his hook. Kaido, deciding to not play games, would decide to use his hybrid form, which begins to make the story go down a similar route. I think here though, Crocodile and Mr. 1 probably aid Zoro and Sanji on their fights with King and Queen, but when they see Gear 5 in action, Crocodile would say to himself that it's fair to say that he has the best shot at becoming the Pirate King. And I know you guys may think it's out of character for Croc to do this, but it's been already implied he's gained respect towards Luffy and saved his life more than once. It's also fair to say Crocodile himself would gain more respect through the fight with DOFLAMINGO, plus now seeing Luffy actually overpower Kaido, with Luffy still maintaining the same thought process he did when he first fought Crocodile. He never changed. And with Wano concluding after this and not much being released, I can't say what's in store for Croc and Mr. 1, but I at least hope you guys enjoyed what I did for the character of Crocodile, because to this day, I'm still mad that all we've seen of him in post time skip is him reading a newspaper. Goodbye, everybody.